All righty, and I think we are live. Preston, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to bring you on today. You and I had actually caught up maybe just a few weeks ago. I think I shot you a message on Instagram. I saw actually your Momentum Chiropractic video, or one of your videos, I should say, and I kind of just, I wanted to, shoot you a message. It's been a while since you and I had spoken, and so then we actually saw each other at the gym last week, and I think it was kind of like the fates had collided. We needed to do this, for sure. So
Yep.
kind of want to bring you on, talk about what you're doing, what's going on. As I mentioned, Momentum Chiropractic. When are you planning on opening? What's going on?
I haven't set an exact day. I'm still waiting on to get some test results back, but
Right.
I'm looking the second to last week of August, between May. So like mid-May to the end of May.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so I'm just waiting to get results back for a test, and then I'm rocking and rolling.
There you go. And one thing that really stuck out to me that was at least compelling to me when I'm looking at, small business owners, entrepreneurs in the area, I'm always trying to look for what is working for them currently in the environment, either to generate business or anything like that. And for me, you and I also kind of think of like Jacob Davis over at TNS
Yep.
or the nutrition store. Digital content is really the way to go, at least in my opinion. But from your perspective, what I really love is that you're already working on that, on building that brand, that awareness right now, even when the business, like you said, isn't exactly up yet. You're still working on the licensing and everything. What are you seeing that's really working? Or on top of that, what is also maybe not working? I always like to talk about, also it's always great to talk about, what's successful, but what isn't working as well. What's some of the failures that you've kind of run into?
Um, Honestly, the biggest thing is if you're not seen, you're invisible. And the biggest success I've had with going digital isn't the fact that my video content's amazing. I'm not that tech savvy.
Right.
It's not like I have a background in, this kind of content, public speaking. I've just realized that if I'm not making videos and educating people on the power of their body to adapt and heal,
Right.
that really I'm getting a disservice, that I'm not doing my job.
Right.
And the biggest thing that I've seen is when I'm authentic and I'm not trying to be someone or like form a video based on what's trending,
Mm-hmm.
then people resonate with it and they can see it. And really,
Right.
just like this podcast, every video I've made trying to go digital, I realize that we live in a technological age. So I'm trying to maximize, the results and the ability to reach more people. But at the
Right.
same time, I'm me. I'm
Mm.
not going to try to be someone that I'm not. And every time I make a video, I'm speaking from my heart. And
Right.
by me being authentic and raw, I feel like that's resonated with so many people because every video I've made, someone reaches out to me and is like, I needed to hear this, even if
Right.
it's just one person. And I feel like by me being authentic, I'm producing better quality content. And
Yeah.
honestly, what's not working for me, I'm not going to say this from an arrogant standpoint, but really nothing. The moments where I get stuck in my head, when I get
Right.
stuck in my head and I create an expectation for what should my caption be? Is this video good enough? Are people going to like this? Dang, my video only got 300 reviews. That's when I go downhill south
Right.
because I'm losing the disconnect from actually trying to serve someone and I'm trying to reach a number. And I
Right.
totally disconnect from what I'm trying to achieve with going digital is to reach more people and inspire and educate them.
Right. Right. No, I love that. I love that. And I think that really goes into the whole personal brand awareness, which is super huge in my industry. But being authentic, being yourself is truly the game, I believe, because and I mentioned this to you when we were at the gym, people want to work with people they like or they enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
that they understand, that they understand the philosophy behind what they're trying to do. Right. And so, and you were telling me a little bit about, what sets you apart in your chiropractic practice, which I'd love to jump into well,
Yeah.
but more too right now, the personal brand awareness is just absolutely huge. Like I said, people want to work with who they like, who they enjoy. Super, super huge. I find that also for me, I'm not myself if I'm just trying to push, in the finance industry, you're always trying to talk about, how you can make people money and all this other stuff, and most people just don't want to hear that. They want to hear, they want to work with an advisor who, understands them, understands their goals, what they're trying to achieve, which just in your industry as well, people have specific needs that they're trying to meet. And when you're listening to them, when you're being authentic and you're trying to really just cater towards them, I think is absolutely huge. So, but
Absolutely.
yeah. But interestingly enough, I think one of the funny things you said to me, or that kind of took me off guard was, I think you had said your goal is not to adjust me, because I was
Yep.
saying I need to get my back adjusted. I've been, squatting too much, my back hurts, all this. And you're like, like that's not what your goal is, which I found really interesting coming from a chiropractor. So, kind of jump into that. What exactly is the difference that you provide as opposed to maybe if you go down to the joint right down the road on 9?
To a degree, everyone in the whole entire world, to an extent, believes that their body can heal itself. That if you cut yourself, you put a Band-Aid on, it has the ability to heal. And ultimately, if the human body, which is the most complex and dynamic thing and creature and operating system in the whole entire planet, then why cannot it sustain itself and heal itself without needing me? And the thing is people get seduced and fixated on cracking and popping because it temporarily feels good. But my job isn't necessarily to treat you or fix you or just pop you. But if I'm doing my job correctly, then I should allow you to tap into your internal wisdom, to the healing power within, and heal yourself without constantly relying on me. So the whole goal is once you come in and get checked, I would never touch someone's spine without specific x-rays. And I'm going to be ultra specific. And the whole thing isn't about just manipulating the spine up and down, but being in the right place at the right time with the right force. And when you do that, the body can receive that and start to unwind tension and stress more effectively.
Right.
So the whole goal is to empower you. I am the doctor of chiropractic. I am the face of momentum. But the doctor is within you. Your body can adapt and heal. We have to give it time. So when you come to my office, my job is to make sure that the brain-body communication is functioning at 100%. And if it is so, then your body is doing exactly what it needs without relying on me. And no one's saying that. So ultimately, the whole thing is to shift people's paradigm, because we only look through the lens of life through the awareness and the consciousness and the education that we have. So if no one knows that, oh, this is a different alternative. This is what chiropractic is meant to be. My body's meant to heal and adapt to whatever life throws at it. And once you start to break through the limitations of our mind and realize that your body is working for you and not against you, then there's infinite healing that can take place.
Right.
And no one is talking about the top bone in your neck, your atlas. And if you follow any of my content, and if we get deeper in this conversation, I'm going to say the term atlas over and over and over, because the atlas is the top bone in your neck. And it is the master switch of your life, which is going to determine if you're thriving and living life to your optimal state, or if you're merely just surviving and getting through. When the top bone of your neck is clear, 450 million nerve fibers can flow freely, and the brain-body connection is restored, and your body can function the way it was designed to do. That's what makes what I do so differently, and why I'm so passionate about it, because results rule. And when the top bone of your neck is clear, that is the maximum results that you will ever get under chiropractic care.
Yeah. So what exactly happens usually to that atlas? Does it get compressed? Is it congested with gook or whatever? What's actually what is typical when you see if you're taking an x-ray with somebody and you're looking at that atlas piece? What are you looking for where it would kind of trigger you to say, hey, we need to work on that?
Okay. Well, we're going to rewind it back all the way to conception. When you're being developed in your mother's womb and the process of giving birth, when a mother gives birth to a child, you're introducing trauma. When a baby is being forced out of the mother's womb, that's trauma. And 80% of newborn babies are born to trauma to the upper neck.
Right.
So that's a physical trauma that's going into the neck, the pulling, the twisting and grabbing. So not only are they starting life with physical trauma, and no one's checking their spine as a baby, then as you go through life and just the falls and bumps and the physical stressors of just being a child, and then outside of the physical limitations of car wrecks and falling and all this and that, emotional stress. If you think about it right now, The second you start to get stressed or have negative thoughts or you feel overwhelmed, what does your body feel like? Everything starts to feel bound and locked and tensed.
Right.
And that can create the bones to misalign because there's so much underlying stress. And when I take a specific x-ray, I take 3 different views because the atlas moves in 3 planes of direction. It moves left to right, it rotates front to back, and then it goes superior and inferior.
Right.
And by taking an x-ray and specific measurements, I can see in what direction did it misalign and how do we need to reverse that to keep it clear. And ultimately, you can also, when you're looking at someone's spine, I can show you that this is off. And then also the compensatory effects from the neck to the shoulders and to the hips, because you'll see the whole spine with scoliosis and deviations, and all that is compensating because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And on an x-ray, you can see it. But then the second we start to unwind and unlock the top bone of your neck, and then not only emotionally do you feel a release, spiritually you feel more connected. You feel like you can breathe deeper, and ailments that you have from your feet to your knees to your hips to your low back, when that goes away, people are like, well, wait a second, you didn't even touch the area, but they feel better and I'm functioning better. How does that work? Because the atlas is the master gate. It's the gatekeeper to your life. When this is clear, everything flows.
It's kind of like the source, you know, I mean, obviously it's your brain. I mean, that's kind of the source of everything, and the nerve endings, you know, follow through to your entire body. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you know, like I said, you know, that was a big thing that kind of interested me as to like what sets you apart. What got you into that side of chiropractic? Because from my understanding, and I got adjusted for the first time last year. You know, I paid this guy probably like $60. He probably did like 15 minutes worth of work on my back, you know, and I felt good, you know, maybe, you know, for like a week or something, but, you know, I was kind of like, okay, you know, just, you know, you just cracked my back. Now, on the other end, I'm not injured by any means, you know, so I'm probably not the best candidate for a chiropractor anyways, you know, but you know, for you, what made you pivot towards this route and looking at it from a different philosophy? Was there some kind of catalyst there that just truly stuck with you, or?
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to backtrack just a second, because you just said you're not the perfect candidate for chiropractic. Actually, you are.
Okay.
Because ultimately, you can never go somewhere where you haven't been. So to understand and create awareness of what life could be like at 100%, or how much more mental clarity you could have, you don't know because you've never been there.
Right.
And right now you are functioning at a baseline where you're like, hey, I feel okay. I don't have much physical ailments. I'm a young guy. I monitor my health, my mindset. I'm very, you know, driven, all of these things. But what could happen if you could level that up to where mentally, emotionally, you had more clarity? And without even treating you physically, you could wake up and start to realize that I'm functioning at a higher level. I just feel more clear and connected. But that will never register in your mind until you start to feel that internally.
Right.
And once I get you under care, you're going to realize that it's not about the structural pain, but it's about literally enhancing your ability just to express life. And that's what got me. So ultimately, it was divine intervention. I truly believe that God put me on this planet to be a chiropractor and to deliver this message.
Okay.
So I was working out frantically. I did 2 bodybuilding shows. I transitioned into CrossFit. I was just beating my body up. And I was thinking, if I have a 6-pack, I'm going to be happy.
I mean, I would be really happy with that.
I mean, it feels good, but you're never going to be fulfilled. It's like eating a bowl of ice cream. Ice cream is going to make you feel good, but never truly fulfill you and give you that joy inside that you need. That comes from living life connected.
For sure.
But I blew my back out in CrossFit, doing tons of deadlifts, you name it. I blew my back out. I went to a chiropractor. The chiropractor was actually at Sherman College. It was an intern, a student. And it was the perception that I had. I'm going to walk in, you're going to push on me, you're going to pop me, I'm going to feel better. Never really educated me. And like you're saying, I went there, I would get adjusted, I would get popped, and I would feel okay. And then 2 days later, I felt the exact same. And I felt like I was in a revolving door. And I was just like, man, just fix me, just fix me. Well, after about 3 or 4 weeks, we wasn't really making any progress. And he transferred me to this one guy. And I met this one guy, and he said, look, The top bone of your neck, which is called the atlas, is putting pressure on your brainstem. It is distorting the signals from the brain to the body, inhibiting every single nerve signal to function and allow the body to adapt. We're going to free that, allow your expression of life to flow, and your lower back pain is going to go away, and your whole entire life's going to change. And he said it with absolute certainty. And of course, I was a 19-year-old kid. I said, all right, cool, let's do it.
Right.
And after my first adjustment, he didn't even look at my lower back. He took x-rays and adjusted my atlas. And not only did the lower back pain went away, but I literally felt like for 19 years, I was wearing dirty sunglasses. And then we finally cleaned them. And when I walked outside, things felt brighter.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I could breathe deeper. I just felt more connected and at peace that I never had before. And in that moment, I was like, this is different. I finally feel like me. And as I continue to stay clear and continue to like receive more care and to kind of break through the emotional patterns and the story that I constantly told myself that I wasn't good enough and all the things internally, as I started to erase that, I really started to step in and, like I said earlier, be the most authentic version of me. And literally life just started to flow. And from that moment forward, everything changed.
Right. Right. No, I love that. I love that. And you said that when we were talking at the gym, you had gone on a few trips to, was it South America or South Africa? I can't remember.
South America.
South America. Okay. Where exactly did you go?
I was in Medellin, which is right like outside or inside of Colombia.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And
And
so you went with Sherman College, or was this with a doctor? Or?
it was with a doctor. So it was outside of Sherman, but one of the doctors, which was my mentor, who was teaching us the specific upper cervical and how to address the atlas, we went through him.
Okay.
And honestly, just to jump right into it, that was the most profound and powerful experience of my life. And that week of being in South America really validated and erased any limitation or disbelief that I had of the body's ability to heal. And I may say this and people can say, yeah, all right, whatever you say. But when you're in a third world country and you can't speak their language at all, you don't know what they're saying, you don't know what they're feeling. And I'm not selling them anything because there's no line of communication.
Right.
When I walk up and a translator said, this is a doctor, he's here to help you. Turn your head to the right or to the left.
Right.
And when I saw a lady come who wheeled in, who was paralyzed for 27 years, she got her atlas adjusted and the next day she walked. When I adjusted a man that was blind in his right eye, and after I adjusted him, green stuff started to ooze out of his eye and he started to get his vision back. That's not a perfect chiropractic candidate.
Right.
Any person you ask in the whole entire planet, you said, hey, my grandmother, she's paralyzed. You think chiropractic would help? They would say, why would she? Mm-hmm. Why would it help? She don't have neck pain or back pain. But when you understand that your neurology, your brain and spinal cord control every aspect of how you heal. And when that's clear, you literally engage and turn the light switch on of how the body's going to adapt and operate.
Right.
There's no limitation. That's why with you don't have any physical ailments, but I promise your life is going to get better. Because if the nerves are good, the body's healing. And obviously in this woman, the nerves were bad. And all of the brain-body communication to her lower limb were turned off. And when I saw that validated every aspect of what I do. And literally, no matter what you have or what you're experiencing, you're going to function and express life better with a good nervous system rather than a bad nervous system.
Well, you kind of jumped into it a little bit where you had mentioned that you had kind of felt like you were wearing foggy glasses or, and to some degree, I understand exactly what you're talking about. When I was younger, I felt like I experienced the world around me in a different way.
Yeah.
Whether it was, my sensory receptors were receiving information at a different level or whatever, but the foggy glasses really gets me. And so I am really curious to see how I feel after my first adjustment or atlas adjustment, we'll say, because, I know what that feels like to have that kind of, a sensory somewhat overload, we'll say maybe of, good positive feelings. But for me, I'm really truly interested in that. And so the one thing you mentioned it a while back that was also pretty interesting is when I went to that chiropractor a year ago, I never got x-rays done on my back. So what I like about you right from the get-go is you're actually going to take a look at my spine. Like
Yep.
you're actually going to look at this thing and say, maybe not just, and maybe some chiropractors can, take a look at it and feel and, crack you or whatever and everything. But, for like a first time, if I'm walking into a doctor's office, it makes me feel really good to know that, you're at least going to take a look at the spinal structure before you
Absolutely.
start doing anything crazy, I think that's brilliant. And more talking to the body's ability to heal. I kind of have it's not directly correlated, but I think it fits for this conversation. My parents had a dog, actually the dog I grew up with, who he hurt his leg really, really bad. He was probably around 13, 14 years old at that age. Old dog, we bring it to the doctor and he's suggesting surgery, on the dog's leg to, fix it. And he's like, this may or may not help, all this other stuff. And we consulted another doctor who his recommendation was is simply, well, look, the dog's older. He doesn't, unfortunately, he probably doesn't need surgery right now. What he did recommend is like, if you can actually keep the dog off of his leg for about a month, which is a long time, it can potentially heal itself. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Misha, which is the name of the dog, sat on the bed for a month. We fed him, we gave him, water, all that fun stuff. But I agree with you. If you give the body what it needs, which in probably Misha's case was simply rest to get off the leg and let it heal, you don't generally always need to do something drastic like surgery or something like that,
But let's think about this. Anyone that's listening to this or will listen to this, think for a second. Let's take a step back. How does the body heal? When you go to a doctor and they give you a pill, does the pill fix you? If the pill fixes you, then why do you have to take a pill forever?
Right.
If ultimately if I'm introducing a drug to you, then that drug should cure you, and then you no longer need that drug. But why is it that we have to take a drug for the rest of our life?
So it's like it's suppressing it to some degree.
Bingo.
Hey, right.
To an extent, medication is keeping you alive long enough so your body can heal itself. That's it. When you cut yourself, a Band-Aid doesn't heal you. It's not Neosporin. It is your body that heals. Guess what? If you blow your knee out and you tear your ACL, is it the surgeon that heals you or is it your body? The surgeon just simply puts things in the appropriate alignment. And then over 6 or 8 months, your body grows and heals itself. The body heals. And another thing, just going back on the x-ray, let's say your child or you play soccer, or all of a sudden you fall and you think you tore your knee. I don't care if you're the most advanced knee surgeon in the world. No knee surgeon is ever just going to touch your leg and say, well, it feels like you tore this. What are they going to say? Based on my clinical expertise and the patterns that I've seen over time, I think it's an ACL, but to be certain, let's take a MRI. Every doctor in the world is going to take an image of the structure they work on. But if I'm dealing with your brain and spinal cord, which is the most precious and advanced thing in your body, which is literally encased in bone, your spinal cord is so vulnerable and so valuable to your expression of life that there's literally bones that protect, that encase it. Why in the world would I just simply go in there and just push on things and guess?
Great point. I mean, again, that was always somewhat part of my skepticism with when I went to the chiropractor the first time last year. So no, I get it.
And I mean, that's my underlying message. Is what separates me is, one, my goal isn't to adjust you. My goal is to empower you and make you realize that your body's working for you and not against you. And then 2, to realize that I don't have my scope of practice isn't neck pain and back pain. It is literally every human being that's walking this planet. Because if you're literally 2 seconds old or 100 years old, if the brain and spinal cord control every aspect of your life, and if every cell, every piece of tissue in your body, and every muscle is controlled by a nerve, regardless of your age or circumstance, are you going to function better with a good nerve or a bad nerve? A good nerve. That's why I check your spine. Right. That's it. So we all need it, but no one's delivering that message, but I am, and that's the foundation of what's going to separate me.
Right. No, and I already see it right now. And I would urge almost everybody who's watching this to take a look at your Instagram page. I believe it's at Momentum Chiropractic.
Yep.
Do I have that right? Okay.
Mhm.
Definitely. And again, part of what you're talking about is something I really love, and I love to preach it, because especially when we hit COVID last year, you talk about a lot about like mental health, mental awareness. Um, and I think that's just so important given like today's age, or especially the year that we just had, where I think a lot of people over the past year are experiencing some form of mental disarray, shall we say,
Mhm.
and to be positive, to experience the world in a different way, or to try to look at it and, that we're getting there. I mean, if you're looking at like the vaccine numbers right now, more and more people every day are getting the vaccine. And of course, there's people who aren't going to take it, but, um, there is hope down the road. What I love to see on your page is that you are talking about mental awareness, because I just think that's just so important, over um, the past year. It is just,
Mhm.
the things I hear from even some of my friends. I mean, some of them sound so depressed and all this, and I want to be able to give them an uplifting mood,
Yep.
like
Yep.
it's super important. And so
Uh-huh.
I love to see that. And what's kind of pushing you to do that, to really kind of bring people into that space.
Well, one is results.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of physical ailments or limitations right now in life.
Mhm.
We're not waking up and we're not out in the farm working 12 hours a day. Majority of people sit. They sit and they're on their cell phone.
Yeah.
And we live in such a reactive, fast-paced world to where we are so connected. Literally right now, you and I are on a FaceTime call, which means that there's literally being beams shot to outer space to a satellite, then coming back to your cellular device, then pixels come together and we're
Right.
talking through a phone.
Right.
That's insane. That is insane. But
So,
now that's become normal.
yeah.
50 years ago, if someone would have saw this, they would have been like, this is crazy. But that's become normal. So the world we live in is just so reactive, so fast paced, and people are trying to conform and be something that they're not.
Right.
And the biggest thing is if you have static going into the brain, then you're having static come out of the brain.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is when your body is in a hyperactive stress state, we call it sympathetic response, then everything is going to feel chaotic.
Hmm.
The noise of life is going to bombard you every second of every day. But the whole thing is when you can start to, instead of having static go into the brain, you start to have clarity. If you're driving on the road and you're listening to 93.7 and your favorite song's on, but then all of a sudden your child or your elbow or you reach over to change the air conditioning, your finger touches the radio and it goes to 93.9.
Right.
The song's going to be muffled. It's going to be static. You can still make out what it is, but it's not as clear. But the second you turn it right back to 93.7, it's perfect.
Right.
There's clarity. Same thing with the human body. That it's not even really about the physical structure. Your physical structure is going to adapt and conform to what you think internally and how you feel emotionally.
Right.
When you're functioning, you work out, I work out. When I'm having a really good day in the gym, physically I feel strong.
Oh yeah.
Most of the time my mindset is in a good place. Mentally I feel laser focused. Everything's flowing. The mindset determines where the body goes. And if emotionally and stressed out, you're dealing with so much bound tension in your neurology,
Right.
then physically you're going to feel like crap. But everyone's missing it. I don't know why I feel so disconnected. I feel so anxious. I feel so depressed. My self-esteem, all of these things. The the only way you're ever going to create a true solution in life is to connect internally. Nothing external is ever going to validate you or give you what you want.
Yeah.
But the second that I can reconnect you to the healing power within, to the emotional, mental, and spiritual clarity that you have that's put inside of you, then all of these little ailments and all of the little story and the program that you have is just going to go away.
Right.
And another thing is outside of allowing the body to function at a higher level through chiropractic, taking ownership of your mind. And this one story right here really catapulted my trajectory in personal development. May 6, 1954. What happened on that day? Roger Bannister was the first person ever to run a 4-minute mile. He realized that physically he could not do it. But what separated him? It wasn't that he was bigger, faster, stronger than anybody else in the world, but he did this. He broke through the chains and the barriers of his subconscious mind. And the second, because ultimately in life, Nothing is possible until someone achieves it. Then you create a new threshold, a new standard. And the second that he achieved the 4-minute mile, in 2 years, 37 more people did it, because you literally broke through the chains of your subconscious mind, showing people
Right.
that this is possible. The
Right.
second your mind thinks something is possible, then anything is possible.
Right.
But most people have put such a limitation, and they're prisoners to their mind, that I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, life is against me, I'm hopeless, I'm not good enough, I don't have this, I don't have that. That's just the internal dialogue.
Right. Right.
And if we can start to rewrite that and change that, that you are not your story, you are not your label, you are not your diagnosis, that your identity is not confined to this, then you start to take ownership of your life, and everything can change in a snap of a finger.
I love that. I love that. Frankly, I thought you were giving me a history lesson there, and I was horrible at history. But no, I think that was beautiful. Like, I, and I totally agree. I think the the mental weight that that sometimes occurs in our heads is just, we overdo it sometimes. We over exaggerate, how bad something might be or how good it really is, yeah. And social media, I think, is a huge culprit of this, especially the mental, depression that we're seeing a lot of times, because all people are posting is what's good in their life, you know,
Hmm.
only the good things. And we all go through trials and tribulations throughout our entire life, but we're not going to post it. We're not going to talk about it, And so if all you're seeing from a celebrity or somebody that you follow, that they're going on these beautiful trips to Bali, or, they just bought this beautiful car or whatever. And it sometimes can be truly debilitating to your mental health. And my general suggestion is just get off of it for a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm
Yep.
not saying social media is horrible entirely, but taking a step back every once in a while is absolutely huge. And again, I think that kind of correlates a little bit with what you were talking about, where that's kind of that readjustment, right? With taking a step back. Let's get back to reality for a little bit and start enjoying life now, not so digital all the time. We want to be more center and aware of really what's going on in life. And so
Hmm.
I think that's great. We truly do. I love what you said about breaking through the thresholds and everything, and it's truly why we keep setting new records. Whether it's in the Olympics or whether it's with tech. That's the one that really blows my mind. When we're looking at, we used to say, like, when my grandparents were younger, they couldn't believe the kind of tech we had. I mean, I'm 26. I can't believe the tech I have now versus what I had in high school.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea, how fast everything is moving right now. And you start talking about like crypto and payment processing is getting way more efficient now, and
Hmm.
all this other stuff. And it's just, the tech that's going around is incredible. And I mentioned it to you, I think last week we were talking about Elon Musk's Neuralink, which actually some
Hmm.
more information came out with that yesterday. It was pretty interesting. But I think there's something to that, when you're fixing or working on the neural pathways in your brain. Um, Basically, what they were saying was, they had some pretty successful positive tests that they were able to get a paraplegic to at least make something move or get something to react on a screen. I'm not a doctor, but I think he's really working on something. And when you're talking about working on those neural pathways, that's kind of where my mind went. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a correlation there, with the tech that he's working on, and kind of the philosophy that you're talking about as well, where the body, again, can heal itself, or at least get close enough to also being somewhat functional.
Hmm.
And I think what he's working on is maybe we can get the body functional and then provide tech with it to enhance that person's life a little bit more.
And Elon Musk, obviously, he's brilliant, and he's
Mhm.
onto something very powerful. But ultimately, the way I look at it is, you're still introducing an outside-in philosophy.
Yeah.
That means we're introducing out something outside of you that's supposed to help you adapt internally.
Mhm.
My philosophy is an inside out.
Okay.
Let's reconnect and make sure what's inside of you is functioning optimally before we start looking on outside source.
Right.
So that's why I'm not cutting you open. I'm not performing surgery. I'm literally allowing what's inside of you already to start to function and adapt perfectly. And let's give it time. And even though he is starting to understand the brain body connection and he's starting to kind of manipulate and put microchips and all that stuff to start to restore nerve flow to get things to move, you're still introducing something outside. And yes, it may help, but you're never actually going to the root cause.
Right.
That's
Right.
the difference. And not to mention, it's like, yeah, that's great, but are we just going to turn into robots? And do we not have the ability to heal? And can people afford this? You know,
True. True. It's certainly not going to be a cheap thing to do to put a computer in your head.
and
Uh,
instead of saying, hey, let's put a computer in your head and let's cut you open and put a microchip and maybe this will work. What if I just say, let's take x-rays, let's allow what's already inside of you, which is absolutely perfect, and let's reconnect that and allow the body to heal like it was designed.
mhm.
Because the most fascinating thing that we forget about is when a woman creates human life inside of her belly, over 9 months, does she think about creating that baby? Not once. Not one conscious thought says, well, I need to have 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, a mouth, a heart, 2 lungs, two
Right.
kidneys.
Right.
Nothing like that. There's not a conscious thought. The body innately knows how to develop a perfect human life. Your body has everything it needs. Your
Mhm.
body has trillions and trillions and trillions of chemical processes taking place every second of every day. It is the most complex operating system in the whole entire galaxy on this planet is our human body. And when you tap into that power, it's infinite. And
Right.
that's my job is instead of going outside, 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 let's make sure what's inside is fully connected and working first.
Right. I like that a lot. I like that a lot, for sure. Um, few things I kind of wanted to jump into. Momentum Chiropractic.
Mhm.
Love the name. What kind of brought you to the Momentum Chiropractic name? If there's any.
I feel like to a general sense, if you say the word momentum, everyone kind of knows what that means. Momentum, moving forward, traction to a certain extent. Oh, momentum. Yeah, we're moving somewhere.
Right.
And ultimately, everyone has some kind of momentum in their life. Either they're gaining momentum in the right direction, which means they're creating more clarity, ownership, more responsibility, and they feel like they're making progress, or they have momentum in the wrong direction, which means they're losing hope, they're stressed out, they're in a fear state, and they're being pulled further and further away from who they're meant to be. So when you come to my office, it's like, what is the momentum of your life? Where are you at mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And what momentum and trajectory we're going to take now. Because the whole point is when you walk into my doors, I want to create a resurrected perspective. I want to change your perspective on life, how you view things. And when you wake up every single morning, it's not an obligation, but it's an opportunity and a blessing. We're changing the narrative subconsciously. Then also, once we start restoring the connection between the brain and body, what kind of momentum are you creating just innately without even thinking about it?
Mhm.
Mentally, spiritually, spiritually, emotionally. And every time that we do a reevaluation, which means after a certain amount of visits, we're going to sit down and I'm going to do specific scans and show you that your body is functioning better. And then I'm going to look at you, Logan, patient, whatever the name is. What momentum have you gained in your life? What is different? What is changing? Not what do you have less of? I get if you're coming in with back pain, yes, we need to acknowledge that because I got to meet you where you're at. But what is changing? What is different? What do you notice differently over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks in your life that's changed? Let's change the momentum. And that's where that came from because I'm not treating anything. I'm ultimately changing the momentum and the paradigm of how you view your life.
Right. Do you ever find any skepticism towards what you're talking about? Whenever you're talking to somebody either at the gym or maybe somebody hits you up on Instagram through DMs and they're like, hey, like, I don't know if I agree with, what you're talking about. Or have you also had, even other chiropractors who have maybe a different philosophy, have, a
Um,
different perspective? What's kind of the feedback you get?
well, one, I let my results do the talking for me.
Okay.
So most of the time, like when we have this conversation, majority of people can listen to this and shake their head and nod into agreement and say, well, the body is amazing. My
Right.
body can heal. And I truly believe if we restore that and allow the body to connect with itself, it's going to heal. They can shake their head and ultimately understand and agree with that. But there again, we can nod and agree with the words that I'm saying. But once you experience the clarity of how your body can function and adapt at a higher level, that's when it validates all of my words.
Mm.
Because right now, I'm starting to shift and break through the subconscious barriers or paradigm or philosophy we have about life. Oh, pills are good. A fever is bad. Diarrhea is bad. No, 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 no. A fever is wonderful, which means your body is so smart that intuitively it knows that if there's a bacteria, a pathogen, or a virus, it's going to increase its core temperature to kill off that bacteria. That's genius. If you go to a Mexican restaurant and you get some kind of food poisoning, your body is so smart that it says, hey, this is off. This shouldn't be here. Let's get it out of me as fast as possible. Diarrhea and we're throwing up. That's an innate response, which is genius. But most people say, what? Fever is bad. Let's give a pill. It's shifting how we perceive how the body heals. And most other chiropractors don't reach out to me because, not that I want to argue, but what I say is the truth. It's a law. If I drop a set of keys, what's going to happen? It's going to fall. Not 9 times out of 10, but 10 times out of 10, because gravity never stops working. It's a universal law. And I'm not selling you anything, and I'm not that persuasive, and I'm not that great of a doctor, but I know if we remove neurological interference between the brain and the body, your body, there's only one thing that's going to happen. It's going to heal. It's a law. And really, you can't argue against that. And you can, there may be some philosophical differences, but the second you start to feel and function with clarity that you never had before, that really debunks any of the uncertainty or doubt that you're ever going to have.
Right. Right. No, that does a good job there. You were talking about, you gave me an analogy, and I kind of want to pivot back to last week because we had a great conversation. When it comes to posture, because one thing I'm working on right now is posture. Right now I'm standing up. I'm not sitting down. I've got a stand-up desk. I'm trying to do everything I can so I've got a good posture going on. And you were talking, and you were going to have to take over for me here. You were talking about how the spine typically works kind of like a fishing rod. Is that right? Could you expand on that?
Yeah. So to paint a picture for everyone that's listening to this, regardless if you fish all the time or if you don't, think of a fishing rod. A fishing rod is typically straight in its natural state inside of Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods. When you pull it off the shelf, it's straight as can be. And then whenever you line it with fishing line and you put the line through and you put a hook on it, and then let's say you cast the hook out to the water, you reel. Then as you keep reeling, the hook eventually gets to the top of the rod. If you keep reeling and you increase the tension on the rod, what happens to the rod? It starts to bend and it starts to bow and cave in. Now, if you just stop, if you continue reeling and the line gets tighter and tighter and tighter, putting more stress on the rod, it's going to bend. Now, you can try your best to force it straight, to step on it. You could put a car on it, and temporarily the rod may go straight, but the second you let go, the rod is naturally going to whip straight and bend over because there's too much tension on it. So instead of getting seduced by the structure, oh gosh, the rod is bent, let's make it straight. What if you just pop the line and decrease the tension? The rod naturally does what? It goes perfectly straight to its natural state.
So by
decreasing
the tension, if we were to apply this to a human, what would that be in terms of decreasing stress? What would you say?
So we're never going to decrease stress.
Right.
We're just going to increase our level of adaptability, because stress is never going to go away. If we sit here and say, oh, well, we want to monitor and reduce the stress in your life, that's a fairy tale. But the whole goal is to increase our adaptability, our capacity to handle life stress. Instead of getting stressed and feeling like we're overload and we're going to freak out, we can monitor, adapt, and function at a better level instead of just like throwing us haywire. And ultimately, structurally, your body is going to go based on the tension and amount of stress you have inside of you. Because ultimately, when the top bone of your neck is out of alignment, the head naturally is going to go anterior. That's why you see everyone's posture is their head is leaned over. And no matter what you do, you can stretch the neck muscles, you can stand upright until you unlock the brainstem, the atlas. The body is always going to be compensated. The shoulders, the hips, there's too much tension. Everything is compensating. But the second you unlock that and you decrease the tension on the spinal cord, then the bones are going to be able to go into its natural alignment. So no matter how many stretches you do, how often you're mindful of your posture, yes, those things are great. But until you address the underlying cause, just like the fishing rod, until you pop the the rod's always going to be bent.
Right.
And it's basically as simple as that. Those are all additives, but until we address the cause, you're merely just treating the effects forever.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so you went to Sherman College, right?
Yep.
Where'd you go before that?
Spartanburg Community College for 4 years.
Okay. Now, let's see. Are you going? So you're done this spring, correct?
Oh, I'm completely done.
You're
I
already
already
done.
have my
Okay.
diploma.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that.
Appreciate it, brother.
So what's next for you, man? So you've got, momentum. It should be up here in the next few months. What are you working on right now?
Really just networking. Moments like this, getting in front of people, educating, spreading the message of what not only momentum is, but what principled specific chiropractic is, and the true healing power that your body has when it's living life clear and connected. So really, I just want to get people excited.
Right.
I want people to leave a conversation with me and say, that makes sense. I've never heard that before. I think I need that. I think my family needs this. And word of mouth is the greatest thing. And
Right.
regardless of going digital, word of mouth and referrals is our greatest form of getting people into the office.
Yep.
So right now, I'm just trying to educate, inspire, and get people to realize what I do is differently. And I want people to be lined up out the door because they want this, because this is going to make their life better.
Right.
But in the meantime, I'm just doing all the back end work. I'm doing all the legality stuff with my x-ray unit and all the paperwork and get everything figured out and doing signage. So it's really just all the tedious stuff. And in between that, who can I shake hands with and who can I have quality conversations with?
Right. Right. I found, sources like LinkedIn, even Instagram, and obviously you're using Instagram right now. Instagram's been a great thing for my business too.
Mm-hmm.
And as odd as it sounds, I'll post random things, music I'm listening to, what I'm doing. I don't know. It like you said, way in the beginning of this conversation, it's just, if you're not being seen, you're not being heard, like if you're not, you have to be doing something to get your face out there, because if you're not, somebody else is, and so you have to be doing something to be active, to be doing something for your business. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, like you don't have to do a podcast like this. You could just be posting, fun little, snippets or, pictures from online, what you're doing, maybe a blog post, like you said, anything that you can do to get out there is absolutely huge. Networking's been big for me too, which again, part of what I used to do when I was working for Edward Jones in Raleigh, North Carolina. I would go to networking events. Those were the best. I mean, like, not only did you get to drink a little bit sometimes, but you could you got to meet people. You got to, see what they're doing, what's going on. And I always really enjoyed that aspect. But man, COVID, because I moved from Santa Fe. I was working in a mutual fund company back in Santa Fe, and I moved back to work with my dad. And COVID hit, of course, right when I get here. So I can't go out to Greenville or, meet new people for these networking events or anything. So it's all been digital now. And so everybody's having to adapt. And I've just found that transition so fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And even beyond that, I mean, just work in general, some companies are also saying we're not going back to the office. We don't need to. Everybody can work from home. Now, some businesses can't work like that. Obviously, like yours, right? You need to be with the person to take the x-ray, to do the atlas adjustment, to do all that. I'm curious to hear if any of your professors or any other chiropractors, or maybe even yourself, how did COVID impact your business or your industry? I mean, it had to have been, pretty dramatic, right?
Actually, it was one of the best things that could have happened to the ones that were philosophically sound.
Okay.
So the chiropractors that were out there that were just treating and managing symptoms, that were billing insurance and just trying to rack you and crack you, most of them closed their doors. They went through a lot of hardship.
Okay.
But the ones that have a philosophy and a foundation to stand on that says, hey, COVID-19 just hit. We've never experienced anything like this in our whole entire existence on this planet. People's in a constant fear state. They're in a ray and they don't know how deadly this is. But guess what? How does your body adapt and heal? Through its neurology. Your immune system is controlled by your neurology. So regardless of the stress of life, the pandemic, the virus, whatever you're going through, your body is going to adapt and be stronger and function at a higher level when the neurology is clear. So when it's in a moment like this, where we're in a pandemic, this is when you need to make sure that your body is in the strongest state possible so it can adapt to whatever life throws.
Right.
And the people that were delivering this message, their office grew and some nearly doubled or tripled.
Really? That's actually
Yes.
really fascinating.
Because in a moment where we're preaching about COVID, something that we have no knowledge of and we're so uncertain about, hey, we don't have a vaccine. There's not a pill. We don't know what this is about. But we do know this. Your brain and spinal cord is how your immune system is developed. That's how you function. That's how you fight off bacteria, pathogens, virus. If that's the case, let's make sure that your body's in the best state possible to fight off COVID-19, a common cold, a flu, you name it.
Right.
And people can say, huh, that makes sense. Let's make sure I'm living life clear.
Right.
My adaptability is 100%. And their office grew exponentially because they were educating people on an alternative, changing the narrative.
An alternative to the standard, adjustment process. That's fascinating. I would have thought it would have been completely the opposite, but I see exactly what you're talking about, where having that different philosophy or that different thing that you can provide for people to pivot to, it could be absolutely huge.
And the biggest thing is people aren't dumb.
Mm-hmm.
People are so smart, but if they're never introduced a concept, they're never going to know.
Right.
I can never expect someone to know this if they had never been introduced to this. And the whole thing is just changing the narrative, like I keep saying over and over, of how we view health. If you've been on a vacation for 2 or 3 weeks, you were in a car for 15 or 20 hours, you went to a foreign country, you name it, whatever. And instead of it being like, oh, blah, 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 I want the narrative to be like, it was a stressful 2 weeks. I was on a plane, we were in a foreign country, I ate different food, blah, blah, blah. I should probably get my spine checked. It's been 2 weeks. I need to make sure that my body's able to adapt. Oh, my child has a fever. They may be getting something. Let's get their spine checked to make sure the body's functioning at 100%.
Have you ever had that where if you have a fever and you do an adjustment that the fever goes away?
Sometimes I've actually had it to where I've given an adjustment and the fever is actually intensified because we reconnected the body's healing power and it actually went overdrive and they felt worse, but the next day they felt amazing.
Okay. So you're going to have a reverse effect. Okay.
The reverse effect. Or I've had a case to where someone has came to my office or they've came to clinic where I've checked them and they've had a fever. They felt terrible. They were having chills and I didn't adjust them because their body was clear and it was functioning and doing exactly what it needed to. So even though they quote unquote felt bad, their body was functioning optimally.
Right.
And there was nothing to treat. And sometimes people have come in and they feel terrible and I needed to adjust them. And I'm like, hey, that's wonderful. Your body is fighting off something. Your body was in a misaligned state. It wasn't functioning at 100%. I'm so glad that you came in today. We just turned on the immune system even stronger. Give the body time, let it heal.
Seems pretty simple to me.
Dude, that's as simple as it is, man.
Exactly. And I think that's what I gravitated towards the most is that you are really trying to pinpoint where the problem is probably coming from, right? And trying to address that problem exactly, right? Your back might hurt, right? And you might need to crack it, right? But is that coming from, like you said, the back, or is that something up here, or the whole alignment, like you were talking about, of your neurological system?
Well, and a lot of it too is no chiropractor is saying this or any healthcare provider, but are you the issue? Is it your thoughts on a day-to-day? Is it your behaviors?
Yeah.
Whatever story you tell yourself, your body can be manifesting physical symptoms based on what you think and perceive up here. The body's ability to adapt and heal is rapid. It responds so fast. But what takes time is breaking through the mental barriers. People that have been confined and locked to certain conditions or limitations of their life, of the story they tell themselves, that's what takes time.
Right.
And that's the thing, is a lot of times our thoughts and our behaviors and our routines and our habits, that's creating a lot of the problems in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, life is just giving me this over and over and over and over, but I don't change anything. I'm expecting a different outcome, but I keep repeating the same behaviors. It's called insanity. And
Right.
majority of people live their life that way.
Right. So what is your form of chiropractic called? Is there a specific, form that
Up,
people can look up to learn more information, or
upper cervical. So
upper cervical? Okay.
cervical is the actual like anatomy term for neck. And obviously upper neck, that's what I specialize in. It's called upper cervical.
Okay.
Upper cervical chiropractic. That's what people could Google or research and find out more about it and how it's so different.
And of course, call you.
Bingo, right there. Call me,
That's the
follow
big
me,
one
reach out to me. That's it.
Give you a call.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Uh-huh.
Well, we are hitting the 1 hour mark. I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but I think I've got a meeting here in about 30 minutes.
Yep.
But Preston, thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, I'm super excited for you. I'll definitely be I'll probably be there day one. Well, and you can
Absolutely.
make me feel good and all that. And so I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you'd like to ask, some of my connections or anything that you would like to connect with from my network?
You mean like who would I want to connect with on your end?
Yeah. If somebody's watching this, is there somebody, if you wanted to broadcast maybe
Oh yeah.
a website or, whatever, or you just want to say, hey, connect.
Really the big thing is I just want to let people know that the only limitation in your life is you.
Right.
Ultimately, chiropractic is going to reconnect you to your healing power within. But outside of that, there is no limitation in life except for the ones that you put on yourself. I'm a living testament that I never thought in a million years that my life would come to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But with constant work and belief, anything is possible. So if you're listening to this and you may feel down and out, hopeless, or feel like there's something you want to achieve in life, go after it. Go after it, because anything is possible. Whether you're 19 or 56, the only thing standing in the way of your success is you. Colonel Sanders of KFC, I'm pretty sure, didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was in his mid-60s.
Right.
Age is just a number.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let life slow you down, and don't put limitations on your life. Greatness is within you.
I can't think of a better message than to leave that off with. I mean, totally. Work for what your goals. Go for what you want to achieve. I mean, and what I've always learned is don't be afraid to reach out.
Bingo.
You will be surprised by the amount of people either on LinkedIn or even in your family, your own network, your professors. You will be surprised how often people actually want to help you.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to reach out, for sure.
That's it.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Preston, for joining me on my first podcast. I don't know if you knew that was the first one. So
I actually didn't. I feel extremely honored, man.
There you go. So, but thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, and we'll definitely be connecting here pretty soon.
Absolutely, brother. Have a good day, man.
Hey, man, you too.
See ya.